Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing my January wrap up this month. Where did it go? So I didn't make a lot of videos this month. All of the videos that I made were related to either bout of books or to 24 and 48. So I'm not going to link to all of the videos that I made this month. Instead, I'm just going to link to the two wrap-ups that I did for the readathons. And also, I'm going to just jump right into the books and talk briefly about them. If I talk more about them in one of those wrap-up videos, I'm going to just go through the books quickly. Just because I read a lot of books this month because of those readathons and also because it's freaking cold outside and I didn't want to leave my house, so I read books inside my house instead. So the first book that I finished this month was during bout of books, and that was The Library at Mom Char by Scott Hawkins. This is horror slash fantasy type book. You are following this young woman named Carolyn who is part of this like cultish type of situation. Something happened to her parents when she was young and she ends up getting taken in by this man who they all call father. There's about 12 or 13 of these people there, and then one day they realize that father has gone missing, and so they're trying to figure out what's going on with that. This book was so good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was completely bonkers. I actually made a book riot video talking about WTF reads, which I will link to, and this book inspired that because this book is just, I had no idea what was happening in this book. Scott Hawkins does a really great job of feeding you just enough information to keep you reading, but you're also still like thoroughly confused until you're like 75% of the way through the book. I wasn't crazy about the way that it ended. Some parts of it were just like, well, this is just too much to explain, so we're just not going to explain it type of things, and I'm just never really a big fan of that. But overall, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely recommend it. I actually read this for the Read a Horror Book challenge, for the Read Harder challenge, and if you're someone who doesn't normally read horror, and if you're like me, a big baby, and don't want to read horror, this one would be a good one to pick up because it is a little bit scary, but it's not so scary that like it's unbearable. The next book that I finished, I believe I also read during bout of books, and that was Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. I don't think I need to talk too much about this because this book is beloved by, you know, like everyone in the world, and I am included in that now. You are following Nimona right here in the center, who basically just makes herself a sidekick to Lord Ballister, I believe is his name. He is basically the villain, quote unquote, against this guy, the knight. I don't remember what his name is. I'm not sure what his name is anymore. I've forgotten. I've read too many books this month. But this book was just completely delightful. It takes the superhero good versus evil storyline and gives it a little bit of a twist. You get to see a little bit of backstory into Nimona and the complex character that she is. There was just a lot of depth to this graphic novel that you normally don't get with graphic novels, which I think is why so many people love it so much, and it's definitely why I love it so much. Nimona is just such a great character. I highly recommend it. If you haven't picked this up already, check it out. Oh, and I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. I don't remember if I said that. The next book that I finished was Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. This is a nonfiction book, and Bryan Stevenson is a lawyer working in Alabama. He started the Equal Justice Initiative, which is basically a nonprofit organization that works to help people who are like in prison when they've been wrongly accused. I'm not going to talk too much about this book, partially because I talked about it in my 24 and 48 wrap up, but also I recorded a full review of this that I just need to edit and upload, so that will be coming soon. But I highly recommend this book. I love it so much. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars originally on Goodreads, but I'm kind of debating about bumping it up to a 5-star read because this book was just so good, and I just keep thinking about it, and especially because it is nonfiction and it's so relevant to things happening in the United States, I just can't stop thinking about it and referencing it and talking about it to other people. So there's a chance this will get bumped up to a 5-star read, but oh, it was so good. I highly recommend this book. The next book that I read was China Rich Girlfriend by Kevin Kwan. This is the sequel to Crazy Rich Asians, which I read in 2013, I believe. Again, I'm not going to talk too much about this book because I actually went pretty far in depth with this book in my 24 and 48 wrap up, so I'm going to link to that. But I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I liked it. I didn't really love it. I didn't hate it. I'm definitely going to pick up the 3rd book in the series because I think it's a really fun, over-the-top series, which is something that I don't read a whole lot of, but when I do, it's like stuff like this is just really fun. And then the next thing that I finished was Sokka Volume 5, which again I talked about in my 24 and 48 pretty deeply. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, and I mentioned in my wrap up that I'm falling a little bit out of love with Sokka. I still like it and I still found it enjoyable, but it's not quite the 5-star read that it might be for other people, at least for me. And then the next book that I read during 24 and 48 was Honor by Elif Shafak, and I love this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and I've recorded 2 different versions of a review of this book, and I just completely scrapped both of them because they were just so inadequate. I'm going to try so hard this weekend to record another review of this. I will get a review of this book up. It might take me multiple more tries, but I'm hoping not. I'm hoping the 3rd time's the charm. But oh, it's so good. I love it so much. I can't believe I gave a book a 5-star rating so early in the year, but I guess that's what happens when you read Elif Shafak. The next book that I finished was The Dinner by Herman Koch? Not sure how to say this. This is a Danish writer, I believe, and it was translated into English. He's really well known for his like psychological thriller type books. When it first came out, a lot of people compared this to like Gillian Flynn, which isn't really accurate. No comparison to Gillian Flynn is ever really accurate, but I do kind of see where they're coming from because this is sort of like a twisty, turny book. You don't really see where it's going. I gave this book a 2 out of 5 stars. It's probably more like a 2.5. There's 2 reasons for that. One, it gets to a really slow start, and especially because this book was so hyped, I knew there was something coming, and so I just wanted them to get to that part of the story. Once you got into like the second half of the story, I feel like you're finally in the story for real, and I definitely didn't see like the ending or any of the twists coming or anything like that. I think I also suffered because I knew too much about this book going in. I didn't even know that much about it, but I think that what I did know ruined this book a little bit for me because then I was just waiting for those things to happen as opposed to just enjoying the story. I think that this book is really unique because it's actually split up into different parts like a meal. The way that the story's structured sort of follows that style. You can see that, and I really enjoyed the book for that for sure. I know a lot of people rated this low because the characters are really unlikable, but I actually kind of like that. I think that's one of the redeeming parts of the story, the fact that these characters are so insane, but I think I just knew too much about a book. This was one of those books that it would have been better if I had just gone into it completely blind. But I will say that this book was intriguing enough to keep me going. I wasn't enjoying reading it, but I also couldn't stop reading it, if that makes sense. Like, I had to know how it ended. There was no way I was going to not finish this book, and that's such a credit to this book. So I definitely don't want to discourage people from picking up this book, and I know why people love it so much. Just wasn't the right book for me at this time. And then the last book that I finished this month was Sorcerer to the Crown by Zen Cho. This is a fantasy series. The main character is Zacharias, and he is the recently appointed Sorcerer Royal. He is a black man, and I believe this is supposed to take place in like 18th century England. He is a recently freed slave, and so the person who freed him was his like mentor and the previous Sorcerer Royal, and then he dies suddenly, and a lot of people think that Zacharias actually killed him to become Sorcerer Royal. And then the other character that you're following is Prunella. She is basically a witch, but women practicing magic is actually not allowed in England technically, and so you are just kind of following these characters. Zacharias is also trying to deal with the fact that England seems to be running out of magic. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. I thought it was good but not great. This book is like a Regency era story, so if you like that storytelling style, you'll really like this book, but I'm not a big fan of that style, so I wasn't super in love with it. I think Zacharias and Prunella are really great in their scenes together. I felt like in their scenes apart, I wasn't really enjoying it as much. The one thing I did really like about this is the fact that they do tackle things like race and rights for women and things like that, but I feel like they didn't go deep enough to really just make me really fall in love with it. They just sort of like touch upon it. Like I said, this is the first book in a series. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep going with the series just because this isn't necessarily my jam. I'm not saying that this is a bad book, but I think the style is just not for me. If you're someone who likes fantasy books, and if you're someone who likes stuff that's set in like Regency era England, then this would be a great book to pick up. So that's everything that I read in the month of January. I'm currently reading The Song Machine Inside the Hit Factory by John Seabook. This is a nonfiction book that basically chronicles the history of pop music from about the late 80s through modern day. I'm really enjoying this like so much. Like, this is completely like everything that I grew up on. A lot of this is stuff that I actually already knew because I'm a giant nerd who like looks up producers and writers of songs, but I'm still really enjoying it, and there's still lots of great gems in here for people like me. Some of this stuff does feel a little bit like old hat because, you know, if you grew up in the era, you obviously are aware of all of those things, so you don't really need to learn about it. It also really does a good job of showing the cyclical nature of pop music and what's considered top 40. But yeah, I don't feel like this book is necessarily teaching me anything new. I feel like it's just helping me create a deeper knowledge. But if you're someone who wants sort of like a crash course in pop music, this is like a great book to pick up. And then the other book that I'm reading is Crooked Letter by Tom Franklin. This is a mystery book set in Mississippi. This book takes place in 2 times. One is in the 1970s. You are following Larry and Silas. Larry is a white boy and Silas is a young black boy. And they're kind of friends, but then something happens to their relationship where they stop talking to each other. Larry sort of becomes this outcast in town, and then one day Larry is found shot. So I'm only about a third of the way through the book, and so that's about where I'm at with the story. It's really strong so far. I'm really enjoying it. I've had this book like sitting on my TBR forever, so I'm finally reading it, and I'm really glad that I picked it up because it's pretty good so far. So yeah, if you want to see what I end up thinking about these books or any of the other books that I read in the future, you can always follow me on Goodreads and see what my ratings are and updates about what I'm currently reading. If you've read any of these books, feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know what you guys thought of them, or if you have any questions, obviously you can always leave that down in the comment section as well. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.